Welcome Wargamers to day 3 of Seraphon week. Today we are diving into the many units that make up the Saurus ranks. And before we begin, I want to point out here that some of these units have a lot more lore than others, but I will give them all their time in the sun. So we're going to start at the base, kind of the most basic Saurus Warrior there is. Oddly enough, called the Saurus Warriors. And these really are creatures of duality. Yesterday, we focused a lot on the sort of intelligence aspect of this army, diving into the Slaawn and how they manipulate the mortal realms as if they're playing a giant chess game. But there's another side to this army, and if you play them, you understand this. Because there's a difference between what you see and what you get. What you see is an army of monsters. The growling, the leering, the chopping, the hissing. It's very wild and very savage looking, and that's what the Saurus Warriors are supposed to be. But then there's actually what they do, what they are, and what you get, which is an incredibly ordered and super intelligent soldier. They follow commands that go beyond loyalty. It's not just doing your duty, it's almost hardwired into them. And under the leadership of some leaders we'll talk about here in just a moment, they become a well-trained, regulated army that is incredibly good at what it does, mainly fighting chaos. And as a Saurus Warrior, this is the most basic line soldier, the one you're most likely to see, and by far the most numerous on the battlefield. And if they need to, Slaawn can summon these guys to the battlefield in huge hordes. But what happens when you take that same hyper-intelligent super soldier and put him on a beast? The next unit we're talking about is the Saurus Knights. And they function as the vanguard wing of this army. Shock troops, flanking forces, things like that. They ride mounts called Cold Ones, which frankly are a very similar beast to the Seraphon themselves, but they're far more primitive. Without a rider, they just get summoned and they go ballistic. So the rider wants the mount, the Cold One, to increase his damage potential, get him across the battlefield way faster, and act as a flanking force, things like that. But the Cold One also needs the Saurus Warrior. He needs that intelligent aspect. He needs that guide to make his battlefield role more effective. It's a very mutually beneficial relationship. And as the Saurus Knights charge, they can almost channel the energy of a Seer into the charge, which makes them devastating, fast, and they hit like a ton of bricks. Now next up are the Saurus Guard. These really function as the most elite version of Saurus Warriors. And they act as personal custodians to the Slaawn themselves, or his personal guard, his entourage if you will. And as such, they make a defensive perimeter around him with a singular purpose of keeping him safe. Everyone else can be spread out across the battlefield, they can flank, they can charge at the center with big beasts like we'll talk about later, but these guys don't move from the Slaawn. And the fact that they live so long, the Slaawn do, is really a testament to how effective this unit truly is. And they also have something that's very unique for any Seraphon. Every Saurus Guard is inextricably tied to the Slaawn that summoned it. If you had a Saurus Guard, I'm not even going to try to pronounce their names because they're so crazy, but let's call ours hypothetical one Bill. Bill can't be summoned by any other Slaawn except for his chosen one. It has a much deeper meaning of personal guard. You have to remember, some of these things, they don't have fully crystallized memories, so a basic Saurus Warrior might be relatively mindless and have less personality. But the Saurus Guard, he remembers that specific guardsman from the old world, and that's tied to him, and no one else can summon him. It's deeply personal. And because of those kind of ties, there's some really cool stories of these guys defending the Slaawn, one of which was the Sundering of the Veil statues, where a Slaawn, I'm going to pronounce this as Lumku, was defended from a giant Gargant crushing him. The Gargant was going to run up and crush him with his heel, and the guard actually came together, locked their shields together, and made a dome that repelled the giant himself. So these like perfectly intelligent, coordinated attacks with a singular purpose of defending the Slaawn. Just cool stories like that. And the head of the guard, the number one of them, is called the Eternity Warden, and he functions as a Saurus Guard, general, leader, squad command, however you want to think about that. Really the captain of the honor guard. And this guy just exudes the magic and power of a Seer wherever he is and just strengthens the guardsmen nearby. They've lived for many mortal lifetimes, and when they are destroyed in battle, they're simply brought back by the Slaawn, because they're that important. Again, these are all named characters to the Slaawn, and this is like the guy of his guardsmen. In fact, there's one great story of a Lord of Change that snatched up one of these dudes and tried to eat him, and the Eternity Guard found a way to choke him from inside his neck. So they're pretty incredible. They're like one-man wrecking crews who are in charge of leading the Saurus Guard. Next up are the Saurus Sunbloods, which really function as lone heroes on the battlefield, one-man wrecking crews. And there's a few theories on their origins, but there's not a whole lot of lore given for them. One is that this is a new evolution of Seraphon. We talked before that as these beings exist, they kind of get more grounded in reality over time. Maybe this is that next step, and so they just kind of become more powerful. But another theory is that they were simply the first ones to be formed and haven't yet had to be reformed. I mean, they were never destroyed in battle and then remade. They're just first edition Seraphon who just never died. Now, either way, they act pretty much as an avatar of destruction and light energy on the battlefield. They just go out there and wreck some face. The next hero is the Astrolith Bearer, and these things have a really cool artifact. Basically, it's a bunch of stone dials that act sort of like a totem. And in battle, these dials will all start to rotate, like just different concentric circles will start to rotate until they lock in place, light up, and they match a constellation that they can be seen above. I mean, they literally find what constellations are above them that can be channeled for power, lock into it, and then bring that power of the stars to the battlefield. And this allows Slann to better channel celestial magic. And not only that, I mean, it's a giant totem. It acts sort of like a symbol of power to the Seraphon and invigorates fighters around him. There are a few reports from what must be survivors of when they see these guys, it gives the idea to the enemy that the star gods are coming, because they see the power made manifest in the heavens brought to the battlefield by the Astrolith Bearer. And the next two units we're going to talk about are really the top of the food chain when it comes to Saurus units. There's the Scar Veterans, and these guys act as lieutenants, really. They go where the fighting is thickest and aid in that combat, and they tear into the enemy. On the outside, it looks like it's just mindless slaughter, like he rides a big old Carnosaur, smashes in there like the Hulk, and just tearing people to shreds, stabbing people with a javelin, while he rides the back of this huge beast. Again, it looks very, for lack of a better word, chaotic, but actually they're very tempered, very disciplined and strategic in how they do this. They see where that kind of inertia is needed on the battlefield and apply intelligently the right force in the right place. Now, these guys are typically relatively young. The longer they are in existence and the more battles they see, their bloodlust will kind of temper a little bit and become more of a focused rage, and that's where they'll evolve sort of into our next unit, the Oldbloods. But last little note here is they often ride to battle on huge Carnosaurs, which are really aggressive monsters that can match their temperament. We'll talk about Carnosaurs on day 5. And as mentioned, the Saurus Oldbloods is the last unit here, and these really are the generals of the army. Not just of Saurus, but the entire means of combat in general. And these guys are the highest level of military that isn't a guard. The guard, I said, acts as a personal entourage for the Slann, but these guys are military leaders, master tacticians, and incredible warriors, and they're among the deadliest of all Seraphon. Their preferred mount is the Carnosaur, which sort of acts as a worthy steed, and it really projects his authority and presence on the battlefield, as well as just practically having him stand up high so he can really see what's happening. And his function in this army is to enact the will of the Slann on a military level. Remember, the Slann are like deep contemplators, they're playing the big game, they're very big picture, but it takes someone to take that big picture idea and make it happen. But what these guys do is take these big, lofty ways of like playing the game and make it, hey, this is how we're going to win this battle, right? These are the guys who make that plan happen. Custodians are single-minded, meaning the Saurus Guard are single-minded, but these guys are flexible. They are masters of war, and they represent the practical intelligence to harmonize with the Slans. Remember I said, Slann are very lofty, deep thinkers, things like that. These guys are very practical in terms of how do we accomplish that? We win this battle, and then the next time we win the next battle, and they just keep going like that. So friends, why are the Saurus aspects of this army so incredibly cool? Well, for one, I love the fact that they really add that other dimension to the army as we talked about before. The Slann are all about intelligence, right moves at the right time, fighting smart, not hard. These guys fight hard with intelligence. The Saurus Warriors and Guards snap to attention. They're very disciplined in how they fight, but they project that ferocity, that savagery into the enemy to terrify them. And when you combine that kind of animalistic destruction and well-practiced military discipline, what you get is a bulk fighting force that can take on just about anything. Now they're going to need some other tools to make this a full fleshed out army. They need scouts and things like that, and that's why we're going to talk about skinks. And they also need some weapons of war to take down fortresses and heavier units, which is why we're going to bring the beasts in at the end of the week. But this is really the core of any Seraphon army, and they're able to translate that intelligent, smart planning, clever use of resources that the Slann bring to the table and apply it on an individual battle basis that turns these guys from an underdog to a powerhouse on the battlefield. So friends, thank you so much for joining me in this video. Like I said, tomorrow we're going to be back talking all about the various skink units and then end the week talking about the mighty beasts of Azir. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm cranking them out as fast as I possibly can. Sunday I'll go back to doing the Q&A type things that I used to do before, but I'm having so much fun knocking these things out as we lead up to 2nd edition that I'm so pumped for. So friends, thank you so much for watching, and happy wargaming.